Welcome to the daily devotional. Today we are looking at Ruth chapters 2 to 4, and this is entitled Ruth Finds Boaz. When we first meet Ruth, she is in a far country, an alien from God and a stranger from grace. Unlike the prodigal son, she did not burst into that far country. He came there pursuing pleasure and wasting his substance with riotous living. Ruth was born in the far country. To Ruth, the far country was Canaan, a longed-for land of life and rest, where people worshipped the one true living God, not the fierce and filthy gods of Moab. Perhaps she had dreamed of such a place in her younger days. If so, the place of her dreams was a faraway country indeed, known to no one in Moab. If so too, her sudden meeting with one of Elimelech's sons must have given sudden form and substance to her dreams, for he'd been born in that country. He and his parents could give it shape and form, as well as a name: Canaan, the promised land. So she married into this family and listened eagerly to the tales Naomi told and to the truths Elimelech taught, until the death of her husband faced her with the challenge of a change. When Naomi announced her decision to go back home to her people and to her God, Ruth made up her mind. She would go with Naomi to the land of her dreams. Then Boaz, the kinsman redeemer, the mighty man of wealth, came into her life. Desperately poor, she took advantage of the land laws of Israel and went into the fields to glean. It so happened, we are told, that she chose a field that belonged to Boaz, a man she did not know, but who was soon to fill her life. We find her then in the field of Boaz. She'd come a long way. Up to now, she'd never heard his name. She knew little of the Hebrew law of the kinsman redeemer. Possibly Elimelech and Naomi had told her about Moses, who had become a kinsman redeemer to Israel. Moses exemplifies redemption by power. Boaz depicts redemption by purchase. Perhaps she'd heard of these things from Naomi. Even so, she would still not know how they would ever relate to her. But at least she was now in his field. And while Ruth knew little or nothing about these things, Boaz most certainly did. Ruth must have been astonished to discover that Boaz knew all about her. More than that, he poured out his grace upon her, made provision for her, and sent her home laden down with good things. Next, we find her at the feet of Boaz. "The man is a near kin unto us," Naomi said when Ruth arrived home, bursting with news, Ruth chapter 2, verse 20. For she saw it at once. The law of the kinsman redeemer opened every door. Naomi, back in fellowship with God's people, was now able to give good and godly advice to Ruth. "You must go to this man," she said. "You must put yourself at his feet and ask to be redeemed. You must invoke the law and ask Boaz to marry you." Boaz didn't need to be reminded of the law. He was already in love with Ruth. Love, not law, would guide his steps now. So Ruth came to Boaz, just as she was, in all her need, and put herself at his feet. Finally, we see her in the family of Boaz. The claims of the law had been met, especially the rules and the regulations connected with the role and the responsibilities of a kinsman redeemer. There was no way Ruth could fulfill the law's demands. The law legislated against her in a most forceful way since she was a Moabite. But Boaz could meet the law's demands, and he did. Then he paid the price of Ruth's redemption and purchased both her person and her late husband's property. Then Boaz married her and put her in his family and gave her a living link to Christ. All of this, of course, and much more beside, Jesus does for us. Thanks for joining me for another devotional. Come back tomorrow, and don't forget, click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you always know when the next video is going to be up.